Henry IV of England, the rise and trials of a Lancastrian king. Henry IV, circa April 1367, the 20th of March, 1413, born Henry Bolingbroke, was King of England from 1399 until his death in 1413. His reign marked a pivotal and turbulent era in English history, an era characterized by rebellion, questions of legitimacy, shifting alliances, and the gradual emergence of a more centralized monarchy. As the first king of the House of Lancaster, Henry's controversial seizure of the throne from his cousin Richard II fundamentally altered the nature of kingship and laid the groundwork for the dynastic conflicts later known as the Wars of the Roses. The circumstances of Henry's ascent and the challenges he faced throughout his troubled reign illuminate not only the instability of the English crown during the late medieval period, but also the complexities of hereditary succession, the growing assertiveness of Parliament, and the interplay between royal authority and popular support. Though often eclipsed by the martial glory of his son Henry V, Henry IV's legacy is profound, both for the precedents he set and for the formidable trials he endured. His reign, situated at the crossroads between medieval monarchy and early modern governance, signified a crucial transformation in English politics. Origins and family background. Henry was born at Bolingbroke Castle in Lincolnshire to John of Gaunt, Duke of Lancaster, the third surviving son of King Edward III, and Blanche of Lancaster, a noblewoman of great wealth and lineage. Through Blanche, Henry inherited the immense Lancastrian estates, making him one of the richest men in England even before his accession. His noble blood was further enriched by his maternal grandfather, Henry of Grosmont, 1st Duke of Lancaster, whose political acumen and military success left a lasting legacy. From birth, Henry was embedded within a matrix of power, land, and influence. Henry's family connections extended across Europe. His elder sisters included Philippa, who became Queen of Portugal, and Elizabeth, Duchess of Exeter. After Blanche's death, his father remarried Constance of Castile and later Catherine Swynford. With Catherine, John of Gaunt had 4 children, John, Henry, Thomas, and Joan, who were later legitimized under the surname Beaufort. These Beauforts would become central players in the politics of 15th-century England, although their legitimacy remained a point of contention. The Beaufort lineage would ultimately serve as a crucial bridge between Plantagenet and Tudor claims to the throne, and their importance grew dramatically after Henry's death. Education, chivalry, and pilgrimage. Henry's upbringing was one befitting a prince, combining martial training with scholarly pursuits and spiritual discipline. Educated in the courtly ideals of chivalry, Henry was well versed in literature, theology, and the responsibilities of governance. He was known for his striking appearance and graceful manners, and he gained admiration as a tournament champion and an able administrator. Henry's education prepared him not just for life at court, but for the moral and strategic complexities of kingship. One of the defining experiences of his youth was his pilgrimage to the Holy Land in 1390. Although he never reached Jerusalem itself, his journey across Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean enhanced his prestige and bolstered his image as a devout and noble figure. The pilgrimage also offered Henry insight into broader geopolitical affairs and diplomatic customs, experiences that would later inform his statesmanship. His journey took him through Italy and the Levant, where he encountered diverse cultures and political challenges that would stay with him throughout his life. Early political activity and rising tensions. In the fractious political landscape of the late 14th century, Henry emerged as a cautious but ambitious nobleman. He became closely involved in the Lords Appellant Rebellion of 1388, a group of high-ranking nobles who sought to limit the influence of King Richard II's favourites. Although Henry's role in the rebellion was more peripheral than that of figures like the Duke of Gloucester or the Earl of Arundel, he was nonetheless aligned with reformist forces opposed to royal absolutism. Henry's early actions displayed both political calculation and a desire to maintain his family's influence. Richard II, known for his unpredictable temperament and autocratic tendencies, never fully trusted his cousin. In 1398, a heated dispute erupted between Henry and Thomas Mowbray, Duke of Norfolk, with each accusing the other of treason. Richard, rather than allowing a trial by combat to resolve the matter, chose to exile both men, Mowbray for life, and Henry for 10 years. Shortly thereafter, the sentence was reduced to 6 years, but Henry's absence from court effectively removed him from the political stage at a critical moment. This episode profoundly shaped Henry's political identity and sowed the seeds for his return. The seizure of the crown. In February 1399, John of Gaunt died, leaving Henry as heir to the vast Lancastrian inheritance. However, Richard II, fearing the threat posed by his cousin's wealth and popularity, confiscated the lands and declared them forfeit to the crown. This blatant act of injustice outraged many members of the nobility and undermined Richard's already tenuous authority. The king's failure to uphold the rights of inheritance struck at the heart of noble loyalty. Seizing the opportunity, Henry returned to England in June 1399 while Richard was campaigning in Ireland. Henry landed at Ravenspur and swiftly rallied disaffected nobles to his cause, including the influential Percy family. His initial claim was modest, he asserted only his right to the Lancastrian estates. Yet as support surged, Henry's ambitions expanded. By August, he had captured Richard, and in September, Parliament formally deposed the king. On the 13th of October, 1399, Henry Bolingbroke was crowned King Henry IV in a carefully choreographed ceremony that emphasized legitimacy, tradition, and continuity. His accession marked a profound constitutional rupture. While previous kings had inherited the throne by clear primogeniture, Henry's claim relied on parliamentary consent, military strength, and moral critique of Richard's misrule. This ambiguity would haunt his descendants and become a central issue in the Wars of the Roses. Henry's new title as the first sovereign of the House of Lancaster signaled a new dynastic order, but one precariously built on contested precedent. Establishing royal authority. Henry's first years as king were preoccupied with stabilizing the realm and legitimizing his authority. He presented himself as a reformist monarch committed to justice, order, and the proper functioning of Parliament. He promised to rule with the advice of his council and reaffirmed traditional liberties. These assurances earned him cautious support from many quarters, but the political terrain remained treacherous. However, the manner of his accession meant that Henry faced a constant threat of rebellion and conspiracy. He distributed patronage strategically, but not always wisely. His heavy reliance on the Percy family, especially Henry Percy, Hotspur, and his father, the Earl of Northumberland, would later prove disastrous. Rival factions resented his rewards to allies and his failure to address regional grievances swiftly. The legitimacy of Henry's rule rested on his ability to maintain peace and justice, and this proved extraordinarily difficult amid the lingering trauma of Richard's deposition. Rebellions and domestic upheaval. One of the most dangerous revolts against Henry came in the form of the Glyngere Rising in Wales, beginning in 1400. Owain Glyngere, a Welsh nobleman and scholar, proclaimed himself Prince of Wales and launched a rebellion that would engulf the principality for over a decade. Glyngere's movement combined nationalist fervor, regional grievances, and popular discontent. It attracted support from disaffected clergy, Welsh landowners, and even foreign powers such as France and Scotland. The vision Glyngere promoted was not merely one of independence, but of a revitalized Welsh polity. Henry struggled to contain the rebellion. The mountainous terrain, local resistance, and weather hampered his military campaigns. His own health often prevented him from leading armies in person, leaving much of the fighting to his son Henry of Monmouth. The revolt continued sporadically until around 1412, and although Glyngere himself was never captured, his resistance eventually collapsed. The rebellion, however, left a deep imprint on the consciousness of both Wales and England. Meanwhile, discontent was growing in northern England. In 1403, the Percys rebelled, aligning themselves with Glyndŵr and invoking grievances over unpaid debts and perceived betrayals. At the Battle of Shrewsbury in July 1403, Henry faced a formidable rebel army led by Hotspur. The battle was fierce and bloody, with the king himself in the thick of the fighting. Ultimately, royal forces prevailed, and Hotspur was killed in battle, but the victory was costly and revealed the fragility of Henry's position. The death of Hotspur became the stuff of legend, immortalized later by Shakespeare. Further revolts followed. In 1405, Archbishop Richard Scrope of York and the Earl of Northumberland organized another uprising. This rebellion ended with Scrope's execution, a move that shocked the clergy and damaged Henry's religious standing. By 1408, with the death of Northumberland at Bramham Moor, Henry had defeated the major threats to his rule, but the cost in blood and goodwill was high. The shadow of civil unrest loomed over the entire reign, exacerbated by regional discontent and economic hardship. Governance, finance, and parliament. Henry's reign was marked by frequent parliaments, partly to obtain the taxes necessary for war, but also to maintain political legitimacy. He convened parliament nearly every year, cultivating an image of consultation and accountability. Yet his financial position remained precarious. The crown's revenues were insufficient to cover military expenses and court administration. The Lancastrian kings, starting with Henry IV, increasingly relied on loans, forced contributions, and extraordinary taxation, which bred resentment among subjects. Corruption, inefficiency, and regional unrest continued to plague the realm. Henry's commitment to justice was often undermined by political expediency and the challenges of governing a kingdom scarred by internal conflict. At times, Parliament resisted his financial requests, leading to delays in military and administrative reforms. Religious policy and heresy. Henry's religious policy was orthodox and aligned with the Church. In 1401, Parliament passed the Heretico Comburendo, establishing the death penalty for heresy. This legislation targeted Lollardy, a proto-Protestant movement inspired by the teachings of John Wycliffe, which advocated vernacular scripture, criticized clerical corruption, and challenged ecclesiastical hierarchy. The Lollard threat was especially troubling to Henry, whose own legitimacy was contested. He could not afford dissent, particularly from a movement that questioned divine sanction for monarchs. The execution of William Sawtray in 1401 as the first Lollard martyr signaled a new era of religious persecution. Though not as personally zealous as some later monarchs, Henry tolerated no deviation from orthodoxy, reinforcing his alliance with the Church while suppressing reformist currents. This suppression laid the foundation for future tensions between monarchy and emerging reformist movements. Declining health and dynastic transition. From around 1405 onward, Henry suffered from severe and recurring illnesses, possibly including a disfiguring skin condition and cardiovascular disease. His physical decline limited his capacity to govern and deepen political instability. By 1410, power had effectively passed to his eldest son, Prince Henry, who assumed control of the royal council and pushed for an assertive foreign policy. Relations between father and son were strained. Prince Henry favored intervention in France to exploit the internal struggles of the French monarchy. Henry IV, more cautious and burdened by debt, resisted these plans. Their rivalry led to moments of political tension, but never a full rupture. Eventually, Henry IV's health deteriorated to the point that he was no longer a significant political actor. He died on the 20th of March, 1413 in the Jerusalem chamber of Westminster Abbey, an ironic fulfillment of a prophecy that he would die in Jerusalem. He was buried in Canterbury Cathedral, beside his first wife, Mary de Bohun, and near the shrine of St. Thomas Becket, in a deliberate effort to associate his kingship with religious sanctity and continuity. Legacy and historical significance. Though his reign was short and turbulent, Henry IV fundamentally altered the English monarchy. His seizure of power established a dangerous precedent that kings could be removed by parliament and replaced by force. His reign exposed the tensions between hereditary right and political consent, divine authority and practical governance. Despite facing repeated rebellions, fiscal crises, and personal illness, Henry managed to retain the throne and pass it to his son, an achievement that eluded many medieval kings. His careful engagement with Parliament foreshadowed later constitutional developments, while his suppression of dissent underscored the fragile nature of royal authority. The House of Lancaster, begun with Henry IV, would dominate England for nearly 60 years before being consumed by the Wars of the Roses. His reign remains a testament to resilience, adaptability, and the burdens of kingship in an age of crisis and change. He was not merely a transitional figure but one who shaped the contours of medieval monarchy's evolution. Conclusion. Henry IV's reign offers a revealing glimpse into the workings of medieval kingship under pressure. He was a usurper, a reformer, a warrior, and a troubled man, but above all, he was a survivor. Though not as glorious as his son nor as tragic as his grandson, Henry IV carved out a reign of consequence, shaping the destiny of England in subtle but enduring ways. The story of his reign is not just one of battles and betrayal, but of the forging of a monarchy better attuned to the realities of governance, law, and political negotiation. In the crucible of rebellion and uncertainty, Henry forged the iron of English kingship anew. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and don't forget to subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 for more journeys back to the Middle Ages. Stay curious.